Welcome.
Welcome.
Well, I did want to kind of use that, but now I don't want to use that.
Why? We're gonna use that.
No.
Yeah, we are.
No, cut it out.
What is up, guys? Welcome to the first episode of Shivers. Right off the bat, we do apologize for the delayed release in this episode. We recorded the first one, and it was well over an hour. There was a bunch of audio issues, and
We absolutely hated it. So.
yes. And then we were going to record another episode, and we both got sick. And we still kind of are.
Not the vid, but...
Yeah, luckily not the vid. But if you hear some boogers and phlegm
Ew,
up in there,
no.
you know what's going on. And please excuse maybe some coughing and stuff like that. So let's get right into it, shall we? My name is Brandon.
I'm Amelia.
With me is Amelia. A little bit of a background on us. We've been dating for almost 4 years, and we are getting married in April.
Woo.
Yes, you sound so
I know,
excited.
that sounded terrible. I'm actually really excited, so.
I met Amelia in the 7th grade when she came from being a private school weirdo to public school.
You wanted this weirdo, thank you.
And she was my first girlfriend in the 7th grade, and I broke her little heart way back when.
Stupid.
Yeah.
So mean to me.
And then she hit me up in, 2018, and she flew over to Germany because I was stationed in Germany, and then we've been dating since. And so we had the opportunity of basically traveling some of the world together, which is awesome, and we miss doing that. We've been to multiple countries together and stuff like that, and now we live in
Bunghole. We love New Hampshire, don't get us wrong, but
yeah, we live in New Hampshire, and here we are starting
boring.
a podcast. It can be, yeah. So, backstory of the podcast: I get very bored very easily of things that I do, so I come up with new stuff to do all the time. And Amelia and I are fans of podcasts and video series such as Morbid, Scared to Death, Creepy McPasta, and some others. And I was like, hey, Amelia, you want to start a podcast?
Not really.
And here we are. No, she's been interested, right?
No.
All right. So Amelia, what's your background on this stuff?
I don't really have a lot of background before you. I never really watched scary movies. It had zero interest. My family's not really into it. So I started watching The Conjuring and all, that series, and I haven't watched anything in a while, but I do listen to Morbid podcasts a lot. Super into what they talk about, and yeah.
Okay. Do you enjoy being scared?
No.
You hate it, don't you?
I cry and sweat.
All right. So I'm the polar opposite. I love horror movies. I'm a huge believer in the paranormal, which Amelia is a believer in the paranormal.
Yes.
But I'm also a believer in witchcraft, and my family, they've always been heavy believers in that type of stuff. My mom is a big baby when it comes to horror movies, but she loves seeing ghosts and hearing ghosts and all that stuff, so it's a little weird. But yeah, so my family has always been, involved with stuff like that, so basically I grew up around it, and that's why I love it. And I love getting scared,
Boo.
So maybe we should have started with this, but what our show is going to be about, hence the name Shivers, to get you all spookified, anything creepy, like, such as Amelia.
That's it. Just creepy stuff.
Creepy.
No, we're gonna talk about the ghosts, the ghosts,
The ghost.
the paranormal, maybe dabble in a little bit of UFOs, aliens, creepy encounters, murder, and maybe some true crime stories. Not like big stuff. We don't want to go over like big people that are talked about a
Yeah.
lot. We want to do like smaller cases that
Like,
not a lot of people know about.
yeah, the non-cliche categories when it comes to that stuff. And our hope is that, you know, our stories and episodes will get your spooky gears churning. Amelia doesn't like this.
The dumbest line.
Get your spooky gears churning in your head and freak you out a little. So a big thing that we are really hoping for with the response to this podcast is people will send in their personal stories.
I am a huge fan of personal stories. I love listening to the listener tales of Morbid, and knowing that these people have gone through it. It just literally just
Yeah.
it's wild.
All right. So yeah, personal stories would be a huge I'm trying to think of a good word. Yeah, so send in your personal stories.
Just send the stories, okay?
So,
Sorry.
our first episode is going to be about Salem, Massachusetts.
Salem as a whole,
Yes. There's a whole thing.
because the witch trials is heavily talked about, and we didn't want to talk about it a lot, but we do want to go over some important stuff, because a lot of the history of it is obviously the reason why Salem is so haunted and so scary today.
Yeah, so when you think of Salem, Massachusetts, the witch trials are obviously
Obvi.
you know, the witch trials are obviously the main thing that everyone knows Salem for. I mean, their cop cars have a witch on them. Their high school is, I think their mascot or whatever is a witch. So, but what we're gonna be going over, we're gonna touch the witch trials a little bit, just kind of cover the background. But we're gonna be talking about the most haunted places in Salem. And if you stay tuned in for the entire episode, you will actually see proof of ghosts caught on camera by none other
That was weird.
than none
You.
other than Brandon.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, boy.
We were in Salem this past Halloween for the first time. Went with a couple friends. Hi, McKaylee and T. We love you. As I choke on my spit. So excited. And we had the opportunity to go on a tour that is, really big. Salem Ghost Tours. What up? And we got to learn a lot of history and just got to see a lot of places we wouldn't have normally probably visited. We learned a lot about the area and the history, and oh my god.
Yeah.
He was just
totally.
taking a bunch of different pictures, and we got really cool
Yeah,
really
I was
cool
gonna say,
pictures.
don't spoil.
I'm not going to spoil it.
So yeah, if you stay tuned in, there will be photos put up on the screen of
On your screen right now.
of paranormal activity that we personally caught on camera, which is absolutely wild. So,
Let's-
you ready
let's-
to
Let's get into it. Yeah.
You ready to go back in time a little bit to the Salem witch trials?
Where are we going?
The year is 1626.
Oh my god.
Very old. So the year is 1626, and the year of 1626
Don't say it
is
again.
is when Salem was established.
What year?
1626.
Okay then.
So, the town of Salem, or village of Salem, was established in 1626
Oh my god. That's enough.
by the Puritans that came overseas from the UK, and it was one of the few first settlements over here, and that's it.
That's it.
So they the Puritans they followed a strict amount of laws, and they were very isolated in their village due to natives, French settlers, and sickness attacking constantly. We're not going to go too much background on the Puritans just because, like I said, we're not covering the witch trials, but I wanted to cover a little bit of their legal code, which is kind of weird to me. So the number one law that you could break is idolatry. which is worshiping a god other than God himself.
He practiced saying that word. He
So
literally
many
has
times.
it typed
Yeah.
out how to
I
say
have,
it.
yeah.
How do you say it?
Idolatry. Number 2 on their Puritan legal code is witchcraft. Number 3 is blasphemy, which is speaking out negatively towards God or sacred things. Number 4 is murder. Number 5 is poisoning. And number 6 is bestiality, which is
yucky.
fornicating with animals.
Yucky.
So that's just a little bit of a background of their legal code.
So what does it mean again?
What?
Like you couldn't do any of that? That was like 1 through 6?
Well, that's like their top 6 laws that if you broke.
Oh.
So murder is below blasphemy, witchcraft, and idolatry.
So witchcraft was higher on the list of
Yes,
things you
back
couldn't
then,
do.
Yes.
Ah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
That's their legal code, which is kind of wild to me. So fast forward to the year of 1692. 2 girls in Salem Village become very ill. One is 11-year-old Abigail Williams, and the other is 9-year-old Elizabeth Paris. They came down with some sort of sickness, and it caused some turmoil in the village because they were attacking people, biting them, speaking gibberish, screaming, saying that spectral things were attacking them, and contorting their bodies in completely impossible positions. So the Salem doctor, the only doctor in Salem, visits them and says that they are under an evil hand. They're bewitched because there's nothing physically wrong with them. Witches to Puritans back in the day were the devil's advocates in human form. They could conjure fiends and shadow figures, they would torment children, and they would blight nature. So, with this being said, the trials begin February of 1692, and the girls accuse the first 3 women of witchcraft in Salem, which is the slave of the Parises, Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne. Throughout the next year until May of 1693, 200 people were accused, 14 women and 6 men were hung, and actually 2 dogs were executed.
So sad.
Which is kind of wild.
That is wild.
I don't know.
How are you going to accuse a dog of
I don't know.
bewitching you?
So, can you scroll for me? Thank you. The individuals that were executed during the witch trials are as follows. The first one was Bridget Bishop. She was the very first executed during the whole thing. And
she plays a huge part in a lot of the hauntings in Salem, which we'll go over.
And then the rest of the names are Sarah Good, Elizabeth Howe, Susanna Martin, Rebecca Nurse, Sarah Wilds, Reverend George Burroughs, Martha Carrier, John Willard, George Jacob Sr., John Proctor, Alice Parker, Mary Parker, and, oh God.
I don't know why you're going through the list.
Piodator. I don't know how to spell that or say that. Sorry. Wilmot Red, Margaret Scott, Samuel Wardell, Martha Corey.
Wardwell.
Wardwell. Oh. Martha Corey, Mary Easty, and Giles Corey.
So, sorry if he said any of those wrong.
Yeah. I just wanted to cover the names of the executed just because they're mentioned a lot throughout the hauntings.
At least a couple of them are definitely mentioned a lot throughout what we're going to talk about. So, and the first thing we want to talk about is the Burying Point Cemetery.
Yeah.
It's the second oldest cemetery in the country, which is wild. It was established. When was it established?
1620. No, just kidding.
1637. And actually, a Mayflower passenger is buried there. That's kind of like when we read that, it was like, wow, that just kind of put into perspective of how old the cemetery actually is. John Haythorne was the judge of the town back when the witch trials were going on. So he was responsible for a lot of the deaths in the witch trials. Nathaniel Hawthorne Huge, obviously, famous writer. He was actually related to John and changed one letter in his last name to make it look like he wasn't associated with John Haythorne because, like, he is very hated in Salem. A lot of his books have the characters that are people who are buried in the cemetery. So a lot of the people that we listed, but also just people who are in the cemetery in general. Um, there's a quote that I'm gonna read. We used a lot of this website, which we're gonna put in the um, on the Facebook page as well. That quote: "Well, since the first bodies were laid to rest at Old Burying Point, there have been many strange occurrences. The occurrences were widely believed to be supernatural, as this was the era of the witch. It is also because of this era that many choose to discredit these accounts of paranormal activity as good case of hysteria. All of the witch hysteria side believed." I skipped a line. "All of the witch hysteria side, I know hard to do. There are nearly 400 years of ghostly accounts at the Old Burying Point Cemetery." Definitely one of the most haunted sites in Massachusetts, obviously. But it is also potentially one of the most haunted sites in all of New England.
Mm-hmm.
Voices have been recorded, and many orbs and apparitions have been caught on camera.
Which we have examples of.
Yeah, which is super mind-blowing.
Yeah, we're going to put some up on screen right now.
There's a woman who appears in the back corner of the cemetery in a blue dress with a picnic basket and sometimes with a boy apparition, who people believe to be her son and that they actually died in a fire. And then there's also a white dress woman sometimes seen in the parking lot and in the graveyard, but when the cameras come out, she's caught as an orb or she's just gone.
Yeah, or vanishes altogether.
So people have seen her, which I don't know what I would do if like we were there and actually like saw something like that. Bye.
So when you see Burying Point Cemetery, it's just this creep. It's like a cemetery that would be in a horror movie, basically. All the gravestones are cracked and crooked, and it's in the middle of this, kind of like a city area. So it's surrounded by buildings and such. But when you like walk into the cemetery, you feel like you're going like back in time, just because of like how old everything is. So we, like I said, we caught some orbs on camera while I was taking photos of the cemetery, and there's actually this giant creepy looking tree that people think is somehow connected to the hauntings of Salem, because I believe I have photos of it. If I do, I'll put it up on screen. But this tree alone has been struck by lightning nearly like 20 times.
Was that the number? Did you ever find that?
No,
I thought it was like 7. I feel like it's a low enough number but high enough that it is like crazy, because I don't know the exact number, but
yeah,
still a lot of times, and it's still standing, so very creepy.
Yeah, and it
sits
in the
cemetery.
Left, yeah, it's in the back left corner of the
crazy.
cemetery. So a lot of people have experiences where they walk into the cemetery and they just feel like a very heavy presence and like a depressing sensation and stuff like that. So yeah, totally creepy, totally worth a visit if you're into this type of stuff.
Don't go at night. No, I'm just kidding. It's literally the best time to go.
Yeah, for the ghost tour, you're unfortunately not allowed in the graveyard at night, but you can go and see the monument that's left for the.
You can walk next to it. You can pretty much be almost in the cemetery, but not actually in the cemetery. There's like the memorial for all of the people who were in the witch trials. Literally lays the memorials next to the cemetery. Yeah. So probably another huge reason why it is haunted.
All right, and moving on, the next most haunted area, place in Salem is the Witch House. Little known fact, it's called the Witch House, but no witches actually lived here, which is kind of weird. But it's the building itself is over 400 years old, and it's the only surviving structure that's left from the Salem witch trials. the house was purchased by Jonathan Corwin, which is the hanging judge of the witch trials. He was basically the big kahuna of killing. He purchased the house in 1675. So I guess it wasn't built all the way, but he had finished it afterwards too. Speaking of the Corwins, there is a known thing as the Corwin curse, which is basically a curse that follows the Corwin family. And it started with Jonathan and his kids. His first 5 children died young. One died at 9 weeks, one died at 6 months, one
was very random, but
one passed away at 19 years old, 8 weeks, and 3 months old.
All like different causes too.
Yeah,
but
sicknesses and
the
all that stuff.
19-year-old was like super random. He like died just suddenly.
So in 1717, the house was taken over by his son, and
one that was still alive.
Yeah, and he passed away from a fever, and then the wife of his son died a year later, I think, from a sickness.
Yeah, same thing.
And then their 2 young boys had also passed away. So that's where the Corwin curse comes from, because so many members of that family had passed away. So the reports that come along with this house are disembodied voices, constant feeling of, being watched. Apparitions are seen throughout the house. And I guess there's been reports of some screaming occasionally.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. So we actually weren't able to go into the witch house because we went on Halloween and it was just so busy. So the line to get into the house was crazy long, and you had to like pre-order the tickets.
Yeah, you have to like book a lot of the stuff months in advance.
But going to Salem on Halloween was easily like one of the coolest experiences, because there was people walking around and dressed up in costumes, and like it was just cool. So if you go visit the house today, you actually find a black shoe that's in the wall, and that's considered a ritual to ward off witches. And you can also find witch bottles, which is a counter magic tool that contains urine, hair, and pins and fingernails all in the bottles.
We don't know, which is
so
gross.
Basically the witch bottles are used to capture the evil before expelling it. The urine was used to attract the witch, and the pins were used to contain her in the bottle. And there's actually a haunted poppet doll used for spell casting, so maybe some sort of like voodoo type doll inside the house, and it was found in Bridget Bishop's house.
Where that at?
I don't know. I don't think Bridget Bishop's house is a thing anymore.
I assume so.
But, and like we said in the past, Bridget Bishop was the first executed in the witch trials.
Mm-hmm.
So the haunted voodoo doll from her house probably definitely has some stuff going on.
Yeah, I'd probably say so.
So moving on to the next most haunted area in Salem is Proctor's Ledge. Proctor's Ledge is scientifically proven to be the actual execution point of the Salem witch trials. It was years and years and years known as Gallows Hill, which is in a different area, but people did a bunch of like mapping from, documents and stuff like that, and realized that Gallows Hill actually isn't the point in Proctor's Ledge was. So Gallows Hill is actually a baseball field now, which is creepy.
And I'm pretty sure Proctor's Ledge, like Walgreens sits on top of it.
While Walgreens, which is actually known to be haunted because of the land it's built on, and we'll tell you why here in a second. So Gallows Hill, there was no actual gallows. Gallows is like, a stand where they have the hanging ropes and all that sort of stuff. That's not how the witches were executed during the witch trial. I don't want to call them witches. That's not how the people were executed during the witch trials. They were executed by a method of short hanging, which is basically getting hung by a rope by your neck by a tree branch where your feet were basically almost touching the ground, and it would just suffocate you to death. It wasn't like a quick, where they drop through the gallows, their neck typically would break and you're basically dead instantly.
Quick. Bing, bang, boom. No. This is like long, torturous death.
Yeah. So Proctor's Ledge is known to be haunted, not only for being the execution point, but it's also known as the area where George Corwin would dump the executed bodies into crevices, ditches, ravines, all in this one area in the woods. He didn't think they deserved a proper burial, and they literally just left their bodies out in the woods. And some of them are still out there, but others had been picked up by their families, knowing that they were just being dumped and they were given proper burials. So reports of the lady in white have been seen out in the woods, disembodied voices, extreme cold spots, orbs, and apparitions throughout that wooded area, or was wooded area. Now all those reports actually happen in that Walgreens, which is built on top of.
The tour guide that we had was trying to go sneak into Walgreens and try to sleep there to see if he could see or hear anything. That was really funny.
Yeah.
Next thing that we wanted to talk about, more me, I thought it was actually really interesting, is the Hawthorne Hotel. So the hotel was actually opened in 1925, and in 2007, Travelocity named it the 4th most haunted hotel in America. It was originally the Franklin Building, and it was made back in 1809. And it actually housed shops, offices for local businesses, and even apartments for the rich. So it actually wasn't the Hawthorne Hotel before. So that was really cool to learn. I didn't even know how long it was built before, which it's a long time. So there's actually a fire in 1845. It was a little fire, and there's actually another one in 1859, and then again in 1860. So 3 fires, bing, bing, bing. And in 1860, it actually burned the Franklin Building to the ground. And it was really sad for Salem because it was actually bringing in a lot of people for, it was a beautiful building that they made in the most perfect spot in Salem. So in 1863, an architect actually reconstructed the building, and within a year they made it just as eye-catching as before. And then I wanted to include this because it actually is a huge part of the story about the hotel now. Also quoted from the website that we will link. So it is quoted, quote, from as early as 1766, the Salem Marine Society had occupied whatever current building sat at 18 Washington Square West, which is the address. Their original purpose was to act as a safe haven for seafaring sailors. After nearly 2 centuries operating out of the same location, the Salem Marine Society had no intention of moving anytime soon. In 1921, a wrench wedged itself tightly among the Society's best-laid plans. It was at this time that approximately 1,100 local residents decided that Salem needed a beautiful hotel to attract newcomers into the city of Salem. They dreamed of a luxurious hotel that would entice the upper crust of society for a visit. The problem was, they wanted their dream hotel to take the place of the fire-ravaged Franklin Building, a building that the Salem Marine Society claimed as home. Debates sparked, and ultimately, the society agreed to give up their building, as long as the hotel builders allowed their new headquarters to be at the very top of the new hotel, and that its offices, had to be an exact replica of the cabin from the Terra Topin, which is a boat, on one of the vessels. I should have read that one better. One of the vessels they'd used during their many travels to East India during Salem's illustrious shipping history. The hoteliers agreed, and soon the Hawthorne Hotel was on its way to becoming a reality. So that quote will make more sense in a little bit. So they basically, people had to keep the replica of the boat, made it look like a boat up in the top part of the hotel. So it was named the Hawthorne Hotel because of Nathaniel. And it was actually situated near his birthplace. And also the house. Oh no, I messed up. It's where his basically his birthplace, and then where he also penned a Scarlet Letter, like actually wrote the book. And his childhood home was on basically the same street. So it was perfect name for the hotel. In the 1960s, the hotel was actually used to film the show Bewitched. And there's actually a statue that we saw in Salem that is made for the show. And it's actually not even near the hotel, which is, I'm not really sure why they made it where they did. But a lot of Salem, actually, I rolled the witch show idea just because, like, obviously the Salem itself is known for the witch trials. So they were like, oh, great, like, making a witch show. Why don't we just, talk about it a little bit more? So actually, fast forward a little bit. A small fire started in the basement in 1997, and many wondered if the threat of the fire had not been somewhat responsible for the ghostly activities, since, obviously it's past, it destroyed the building, like from a fire. So ghost hunters in 2007, which the show actually, there's an episode that you can go watch, said that there was actually nothing that happened at the hotel that would cause hauntings. Like, nobody was murdered. So that's why a lot of people believe that the fire was the reason that it sparked a lot of the haunted energy in the hotel. So going into a little bit of what actually happened, so some of the little hauntings. The very top floor, which is what I talked about, employees have claimed to see the ship's helm turning. And guests have come back into their rooms with items all over the place. I guess they said more like maps and stuff. So stuff that made more sense to like the whole, ship thing. Those were scattered everywhere. Guests have reported hearing water faucets turn on and off and toilets flushing on their own. One woman found her son in the middle of the night cowering over hearing a disembodied child sobbing. Specifically, room 325 and 612 are the most active. There's been reports of phantom hands tugging on sheets in the middle of the night. Others have claimed to felt hands touching their hair and their hands as they slept. In 612, the room 612, people reported seeing a ghostly woman parading around the room and checking out her near translucent figure in the mirror. So just checking herself out. And yeah, that's the Hawthorne Hotel, which it's actually really not that expensive to stay in. So if you ever want to stay there, let me know if you have any experiences with that, because I'm all set.
Yeah, I want to go stay there. My mom wants to go stay there with me, but Amelia doesn't want to.
Yeah, I'm good. Have fun.
But yeah, a lot of people that visit Salem that want to get their ghost kick, they'll go stay in the hotel and go around and see, all the haunted places. Good job, babe. There's a lot of good info.
Yeah, because I wanted to keep that from him because he didn't know anything about the Hawthorne Hotel.
I did not.
So thought it was cool, the whole ship thing.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And the ship's helm, if you don't know, is actually basically the steering wheel of the boat.
Which I had to look up.
We had to Google. All right, so moving on to the next most haunted location in Salem is Murphy's Pub, which is a bar that is located literally right next to Old Burying Point Cemetery, which is the same one that we talked about initially. So not only is the building literally right next to the cemetery, it shares a retaining wall with the cemetery. So one of the walls of the building is a wall of cemetery, which is extremely weird. So a really bad storm kicked off in Salem and caused the retaining wall to crumble, and a child's coffin washed into the pub's dining room.
Did you figure out when that was, or find out when that
No,
was?
there's no
when
like,
that happened.
No, there's no like year listed or anything like that. So obviously with the location of the pub and a child's coffin washing into the dining room.
Yikes.
Yeah. There's a lot of haunting stories that occur in the pub, such as the lady of the blue dress walking around and a lone female apparition in the bar that just kind of does her thing, throughout the bar. And there's been sights of shadow figures and disembodied voices. But the fact that a coffin just kind of was like, hey, can I get a drink?
It's messed up.
Yeah. So, do you want to do the Ward House? Okay. So, Murphy's Pub is a short one, so we're moving on to the next. The Joshua Ward House, which is actually now a bed and breakfast. I don't know if it's open to the public or not, but regardless, it was remade into a bed and breakfast, but originally it was built in 1784 by a wealthy sea merchant, Joshua Ward.
You said bread and breakfast.
Breakfast. Wealthy sea merchant Joshua Ward. It's one of the first brick homes in Salem, and actually George Washington visited the home in 1789. Say what? Isn't that wild? Today it's a bread and breakfast. The building was built on the same property that was owned by George Corwin. The 25-year-old sadistic sheriff was deadly during the trials. He was given the nickname of the Strangler after his inhumane interrogation and execution methods. He was also known for being the main decider on just dumping the bodies of the executed into ditches and crevices and ravines, like we mentioned. And 4 years after he executed Giles Corey, which has been mentioned a few times already, he died of a heart attack. Now, going to the story...
The sheriff did, not Giles Corey.
Going to the story of how Mr. Corey was executed, he was accused of witchcraft, and he did not enter a plea. He didn't say he was guilty or not guilty. He just said, nope, no. Just kept saying no.
Because if you say you're guilty, you have to give your land away. But he wanted his family to keep his land, so he didn't say that he was guilty or not.
So obviously this pissed the sheriff off, and they decided to press him to death. And pressing to death is where they would lay a board on top of you, and they would just pile super heavy stones on top of your body until you were crushed. So during the execution, Giles was constantly questioned by Sheriff Corwin, guilty or not guilty. And the only thing that he said, which is super gangster, was more weight. Until he died.
A legend.
Legend, yes. He executed Giles and then died of a heart attack 4 years later. And his family he was a very hated man throughout Salem, just because of he was just sick. He was a sick-minded, inhumane, nasty being. And when he passed away, his family decided to lay his body in the basement of the house instead of burying him, because they were afraid of the public of Salem would, rob his grave, mess with his gravestone, and etc.
I don't blame them for thinking that.
Yeah, so
probably would happen.
Later on, he was actually taken and put into their family tomb, but it is said that his spirit still haunts the land. The Ward House is actually considered one of the most haunted locations in Salem. On the second floor of the home, there has been numerous accounts of being choked.
No, thank you.
Choked. So a sensation of hands slowly wrapping around your neck and actually physically squeezing you, making it hard to breathe. That is creepy. Giles Corey is also said to haunt the house, which I don't blame the man. The revengeful spirit of him takes books off shelves, throws them, causes extreme cold spots, and this is wild. And candles have been found in a puddle of wax, but were never actually lit. And often the candles were melted into a shape of an S, perhaps standing for the word sheriff. Like, a lot of people don't know. But can you imagine coming in and seeing a candle not lit, like a decorative candle, and it being melted?
No. Bye.
And then the third famous spirit of the home has been found on the upper floor, and there's been countless, sightings of this very, very creepy looking woman spirit in a black dress. And an account that has been recorded was in 1980. There was a party in the house, and a Polaroid photo was taken. And instead of the blonde woman that he was taking a photo of, when he, shook the photo and it, came to, there was a dark-haired woman with extremely rough features and a very, very pale skin, almost invisible. Took the blonde woman's place in the photo.
I just got the chills.
Yeah, isn't that?
I don't even know what
creepy?
I would do.
Isn't it creepy? And other reports have been, orbs and ghastly cries of a child, which is...
That's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, really creepy. So the Joshua Ward house is most definitely haunted, in my opinion.
Yeah, nothing go. So next we're going to talk about the House of the Seven Gables. The house was originally built by John Turner in 1668. He was a shoe and hat merchant at the time, but later became one of the most wealthy men in Massachusetts. And then he died in 1742. The third generation of Turners ended up losing the family fortune, and the house was sold to Samuel Ingersoll. Ingersoll. Sorry if I said that wrong. He added a kitchen, a south wing, a 2-story porch, and the infamous secret staircase mentioned in the book of the House of Seven Gables, if you have ever read it, by Nathaniel Hawthorne himself. There has been a man spotted climbing up and down the secret staircase, and many claim that he's from the underground railroad area. I don't know why that was so hard to say. But the house was not a stop. So was he dressed?
I guess, yeah. When people see him, they just assume that he's from that era. But like it said, this house was not on Underground Railroad, so I'm not sure where his spirit comes from.
And then a phantom ghost child has been seen in the house as well. He favors the attic. Throughout the day and night, he can be heard running and pouncing upstairs. He's also heard giggling and laughing. Historians believe he's a child that was a servant of the home because the attic was the location of their quarters, which makes sense. A woman known as Susanna Ingersoll, so I'm going to assume wife or sister or something, she's been seen walking the halls and staring out a window, admiring the garden below. Reports of the feeling of being watched, whispering in your ear, ooh,
yeah,
and just very uneasy and lightheaded and anxious is reported. And no thanks.
Yeah,
remind me to never go there.
There's a story that I read from someone that had entered the house. He went and visited with his wife, and he heard a woman whispering in his ear. So, and he didn't understand what it was saying, so he turned around thinking it was his wife, and there was not a single woman near him.
Yeah,
so
I'd be out of that place so fast.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to the Old Salem Jail. The jail was built in 1813. It was the country's first established penitentiary. There's a stigma with that word. Amelia finds it funny because I could not say it for the life of me for 2 hours.
Penitentiary.
Yeah. Anyways, the land that the building was built upon is the site of the execution of Giles Corey. It is said that the granite used to build parts of the prison were recycled from St. Peter Street, where the jail is located. The granite that was used to build the jail was once stained with the blood of the Salem witch trial victims.
It's messed up.
Throughout the years of the prison being opened, many prisoners met their fate inside of the walls by hanging. Nearly 50 hangings occurred in the prison's dining area. Imagine that. Trying to enjoy your like mashed potatoes and Fred is getting hanged. That'd be fuck. What? A vast number of the inmates sought to take their own lives actually as well because of the conditions they were living in. In 1893, Charles Kenny, which was one of the prisoners, he took his own life by hanging himself with a towel in his cell. So I guess many of the prisoners took that route. Even by 1970, the prison still hadn't introduced modern plumbing.
Yucky.
The inmates had to use 5-gallon buckets as chamber pots, and once per week they were allowed to use one of 2 operating toilets on the property. And for nearly 177 years, the prisoners lived in these conditions until it was closed in 1991.
Oh my god.
So after the jail was closed, reports of flickering lights was a normal occurrence, oddly enough, because the electricity to the property had been cut off. Blood-curdling screams are heard throughout the day and night, and shadow people lurking throughout the hallways.
There's literally nothing scarier than something just like coming out of nowhere. That is
random,
absolutely terrifying.
especially a blood-curdling scream, because like that
Even the whispering thing that you were just talking about, that's terrifying.
Right? So in the 1960s, the Boston Strangler, which is an infamous murder of 13 women, was locked up in the Salem jail. He would lure women into their own apartments. So this guy had a way with words, basically.
I think I learned about him. I think he actually just like stalked them and found his way in. He would like stalk the women and somehow find a way in before they got home.
Yes.
But
So
I could be wrong.
He I know one story. He posed as a detective.
Yeah.
And got entry into a woman's house, and that's actually how he was caught, because he didn't murder her. He just raped her and then left her, and that's how he ended up in prison. And then he admitted all the murders. So he was originally in prison for just rape, and then he admitted the murders to his jail cell.
His jail cell.
His jail cell wall. Yeah. No, his jail. His cellmate. Thank you.
Yeah.
His cellmate, and then his cellmate went
and tattletaled.
Yeah, and then he was put in prison for life.
Bye.
Anyways, so he was there, and there's been reports of the Boston Strangler's specter being seen throughout the jail property, which is creepy as hell. Reports of ghost prisoners trying to flee the jail in a last-ditch effort have been seen.
That's so sad. I'm
Can you
sorry.
imagine that?
I did not mean to laugh. That is so sad.
Yeah, full body apparitions have been seen sprinting across the front yard, and sounds of chains chasing them.
Do you imagine?
No.
It's like a terrible life
I can't even imagine being in jail in general. Imagine dying in jail.
And then literally just living it.
Over and over and
over. Over and over and over.
Yeah, which we want to mention that.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Another report comes from the upstairs of the jail. There's a shadow figure holding a candle that steps close enough to an edge that's, where people are able to see him going from room to room. But the reports of where this ghost have been seen comes from a floor of the jail that doesn't exist anymore. It apparently had collapsed years and years ago. So this specter, this apparition, is just floating in the top floor of the jail. Screams and cries have been heard, and the candle ghost is believed to be linked to the Civil War era, where people that committed war crimes in that area were actually locked up in the Salem jail as well.
It's nuts.
During the war.
That's absolutely nuts.
So I'm actually going to do 2 in a row, because the next is the Pickman house, and I've been dying to tell Amelia the actual story of this house.
Because we actually got to see the Pickman house,
yes.
And we, the story that we heard, I guess, is not the whole story, or...
I guess, so the story gets twisted, because it's It's been told and told and told and told, just
And
like
he
every
said,
other
she
story.
said, and
Yeah.
whatever.
But the story that I found is disturbing as hell.
I'm excited, but
So,
terrifyingly excited.
and the best part is about this house, the best photo that I got in Salem comes from this house.
Oh my
and
god,
the story.
it is
so creepy as fuck.
Creepy. Oh my god.
All right, so the Pickman house. It was originally built in 1665 by Samuel Pickman. It's literally right next to the old Bearing Point Cemetery. Throughout the life of the house, it had many people live there. One person is the French painter, Michel Felice Cornet. Sorry if I butcher the name. A very famous artist that is known for their painting skills and whatnot, but is more famously known for bringing the tomato into the New World.
What?
Wild. So he showed up, or she. I probably should have done a little bit more research. They showed up to Salem and noticed that no one was eating the fruit and introduced it to the people of Salem. And at first they thought this dude or girl was like trying to poison them with some weird fruit, but he was like, look, I'm gonna eat it. And he eats it, and it totally changed like the cuisine.
What?
Isn't that wild? And she hates tomatoes, so I thought it'd be kind of funny. I
Me
love
too, girl.
tomatoes. And another resident is Benjamin Lind Jr., which was involved in the Boston Massacre trial.
Wow.
Yeah. So being one of the oldest buildings in Salem and being right next to the graveyard comes along with a lot of ghost stories, obviously. Most people believe that a gruesome murder-suicide is the main factor of the hauntings of the home. A family of 3 moved into the home, don't know a year, but a man, his wife, and their daughter. The man suffered from mental health issues, and they were dwindling extremely fast. Eventually, he became insane and claimed he could hear and see demons inside the house.
So it must have been after.
Oh, hold on.
Okay,
Don't assume.
I'm so
Let
sorry.
me finish. One day he took his daughter and locked her in the attic. He chained her to the wall. Just left her in the attic. She was starving, defecating, and urinating on herself. And the mother was so petrified of the husband because of how insane he was that she was too scared to stand up to him to save the daughter.
Oh my god.
So eventually she realized that the daughter's health was in serious danger, so she started begging to her husband to please, like, can we let our daughter out of the attic? And he got so tired of her, he brought her out to a tree, tied her to it, went back in the house, got a huge pot and a block of wax and melted it in the pot while his wife was just sitting out by the tree, tied up to the tree, brought the pot out to the tree and dumped it on her head. And she started screaming and howling in pain, and eventually the wax hardened and she died.
What, because she like couldn't breathe or something?
It covered her face. And then after he confirmed that she was dead, he went into the house and hanged himself. And their daughter obviously perished in the attic.
Because she was chained up.
Because she was chained up, starving.
Well, that was not the story that we heard.
No.
I like the other story better. I mean, not really, because she still died up in the attic, but...
Brutal. So, with the little girl being basically murdered in this house, there has been so many reports of her staring out of the second story window. And there's been reports of disembodied voices, orbs, screaming, and floating human faces inside the house.
Yeah, so the story that he told us was that basically she got sick of like the huge flu that was going around. I don't know if it was like
I think it was smallpox.
Yeah, smallpox. She got really sick, and he had his family. I think what he said he had sons or something, but he had like a bigger family, and he didn't want them to get sick, so he took everybody out of the home and left her there basically to die. So either way, he left her up there to die.
Yeah.
So that part, 100% true.
So, like I said, the reports of this girl being caught on camera staring out of the second story window, I decided to take photos of that exact window that the tour guide had pointed out, and I actually caught something on camera.
When you see it, it is absolutely mind-blowing how creepy.
So I took about 20 to 30 photos of the window, just kind of in accession. You know, I just held my camera button down and it just snap, 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 snap. And I went through, and this face appears in some, and some, it's just not there. So, and it is a clear face. So I'm going to put the photo up on the screen right now, and you guys can decide for yourself.
Literally getting the chills just thinking about it.
Yeah. You guys can decide for yourself whether you think that is the little girl or not. Now, mind you, when you look at this window, colonial homes are very small. They're very short. Their ceilings are short.
Their windows are small.
Yeah. So if I'm 6'2", if I had gone and stood at this window, where I think my head would probably be at the top pane or higher. So where her face is, it is the perfect position of a child. And it is...
Or sitting looking out the window. Either way.
Yeah,
like,
regardless. She's seen staring out of the
terrifying.
second-story window, and I caught it on camera.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
To say the least.
So you guys let us know in the comments whether you think that's her or not. And moving on, do you want to cover bunghole liquors?
What is this about?
Just honorable mentions.
Um,
Because we're basically ending the episode after these two, but the reports of, you know, this
okay.
stuff are kind of
So
interesting.
this is legit. Bunghole Liquors and Wicked Good Books have had reports of hauntings, mainly because of the tunnels that were built underneath Salem. So I'm assuming those are buildings. Bunghole Liquors.
Yeah, Bunghole Liquors is a shop where you can go and buy liquor.
Oh.
And
Didn't even touch her.
Wicked Good Books is a bookstore that's currently haunted.
So the tunnels were used mainly by wealthy men to be hidden while going to brothels, and the tunnels were used for sex, crime, and even murder. Human remains have been found in the tunnels. In the basement of Bunghole Liquors, which was originally a funeral home, was where the undertaker had kept the bodies. Once the home was bought and converted into a bar, reports of paranormal activity had started. The main reports from... I can't, it's just funny. I'm sorry. The main reports from Bunghole have been reported as cat spirits.
Immaturity level increases?
I'm so sorry. I'm professional. Cat spirits? Such as workers feeling a feline type entity rubbing against their legs. That's wild. Why did I not know that, like, animal things, like spirits, could be a thing? I don't know why I didn't think that. That was stupid of me. Sights of feline-shaped apparitions have been seen, and also women spirits have been seen walking into the bar and disappearing short after. Cameras have been added to the basement, and orbs and illuminating lights in the dark room have been caught. Wicked Good Books also had an opening to the tunnels in the basement, and it has since been closed off, but reports of books flying off shelves, full-body apparitions, and shadow figures have been seen. Wicked Good Books is also located on what is considered the most haunted street in Salem. So everywhere, Salem's just haunted in general. Which one was the bar? We didn't talk about the bar. So there's this...
Murphy's Pub.
Or was it the pub? Is that where Bridget Bishop was? So basically... Oh, I thought that we had talked about that. I guess we didn't. So when we were on the tour, we were in like this alley, which was right next to this. It was a seafood restaurant. I'm so sorry, don't know the name of it. I thought that we did that one. Basically, I think that was her house, and it was turned into a pub, or it was her. She had an apple orchard in that area. So she haunts that area, and it has been very widely reported that when you go around to the restaurant near the alley, you can actually smell apples. And it was really weird because Brandon and I had looked at each other and was like, that's weird, because we had actually smelt the apples. And then I honestly, as soon as he said that, it went away. So that was my report of that. I thought that was really weird.
So she owned an apple orchard. I think it was actually in the area that the Hawthorne Hotel was built on as well, apparently. But
yeah, there was reportings of people saying that they could smell the apples in the hotel, and but that's not actually the case. Yeah,
and we were far enough from the restaurant as well, and it was extremely cold out, so like the restaurant windows weren't open or anything. And before we stood under this like area, and before this man had even said anything about apples and smelling them, I got a whiff of apples, and it was the weirdest thing ever when he said it. I just like looked at Amelia and I was like, before he even mentioned it, I could fucking smell
Yeah,
it.
no, same. And I thought it was the weirdest thing because I was like, wow, it smells really sweet over here. And then as soon as he said it, it went away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the employees of the restaurant have actually seen her standing on top of the staircase in her dress.
And she also takes silverware from the tables.
Yeah, that's right. There's like people are like, oh, where'd my fork go? And then they like employees have to literally just be like, oh, like I must have forgot it. They have to like brush it off.
Yep.
So another thing that we also wanted to mention, which is something that was told to us, which is we had said a little
weird.
previously.
Yeah.
So there's also a building. I feel like they said there was a dance hall at one point, and now it's there's restaurants and stuff underneath, but up top is kind of still open. So there was a guy that used to work in the building way back when, and he constant working man.
He was a businessman.
Yeah, just went to work, did the thing, went home, but he was just known for being just working. And he actually passed away in his office. And so we were told that people still see him working.
Yeah.
To this day, he's still doing the same thing, and that we learned that we actually bother some spirits. Like, spirits think that they are still alive and that they're still doing the same thing as before because they still think that they're there, like they're here, and that we bother them. We are the
We're
ones
the
that are
unknown.
like, yeah,
We're the unknown.
They're like, what the heck? Who are you?
Yeah.
So that to me is just so crazy to wrap my head around the fact that like if I die and I'm still doing, like, especially the work thing, that, oh my God. Miserable.
Yeah.
Miserable.
So basically, you pass away, and if you, whatever your religious beliefs are, wherever you go in that aspect, or you stay on Earth, majority of the time spirits stay on Earth because they have quote unquote unfinished business. So either your unfinished business is doing your daily life over and over and over and over for eternity,
Poor guy.
or you're coming back and you're basically just haunting stuff.
Like an actual demon.
You're just there. I wouldn't say that, but
Diamond.
yeah. Yeah, so thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this episode was interesting and intriguing to you.
And
I forgot to mention about the Salem jail. They converted it into apartments.
Ew. Oh wait, the working one that we saw?
Yes.
Yeah, because
It's apartments and restaurants. One I'm talking about, the one that closed in 1991. They converted that into apartments, offices, and restaurants. Can you imagine?
No.
Yeah, no.
If this was like choppy or like terrible, like this is our first time obviously doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So like just give us a break, okay?
Yeah.
We're going to get better. This is all like we're trying to get, more comfortable into this. And hopefully you like it, cuz we did it. We took a lot of time researching, so
yeah, there's a lot.
Sorry
of
if it wasn't
information
like
we
what
covered.
you expected, but
and send in your personal stories, like I said, to the email, the Facebook page. We thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this, was par with your expectations. If not, we're
we'll get
working
better,
on it.
okay?
Yep.
We're trying to, like I said,
Yeah.
we're just
So, again,
lubing.
thank you guys.
That was terrible. We're just trying to get more comfortable doing this behind a mic. So.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Our goal is to post a podcast once per week.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Main goal.
And if we get enough support, it does cost us money, but we do want to put them on Apple and Spotify. Apple
if
Music.
we're good enough, if we think that we're
I
cool
think,
enough.
But yeah, so thank you. Stay tuned for episode 2 of Shivers. We're not too sure what we're going to be covering yet. I think we're going to be keeping a secret every week anyways.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
We're just going to whatever we find cool.
So, all right, guys. Thanks and goodbye, and we love you, and thanks, and we love you, and goodbye.
And peace out.
Ciao.
Peace out.